Hey guys, Bruce Kittle here, Hidden Pearls Podcast. Welcome to week 18 episode of the Hidden Pearls Podcast. I'm very, very excited about this show. I guess just a word on the Niners first, eh? For those of you who aren't Niners fans, anyway, was in Las Vegas, played New Year's Day, and wow, did the Raiders come out and play, and it was pretty amazing, a very exciting game. Niners prevail in overtime, 37-34, now head in with a 9-game win streak to the last weekend of the season, hosting our good friends, the Cardinals from Phoenix. So should be an interesting game. We'll see, still in the mix for first and second seed, and we'll see how everybody else plays out. But anyway, pretty exciting. We're looking forward to the playoffs. So this week, really amazing show. So I was able to get back to Santa Fe this week after my other travels. And for those of you who've been participating in the work that we're doing with merging vets and players and with the NFLPA on mindfulness, the courses that we've been offering, one of our co-teachers is Ralph Steele. And Ralph is our guest this week. And I would just say I thought this was really an amazing show. So Ralph is a little bit different. Ralph is a Vietnam-era veteran, served in the United States Army after enlisting at the height of the Vietnam campaign. Ended up being a helicopter door gunner, so you can listen to what that was all about. But basically, born in South Carolina, real quick, his father was killed by the Klan in the early 50s. He moved with his mom to Japan, where he was first introduced to meditation and mindfulness. So that is really where Ralph is grounded and steeped in. After that, he went into the Army, and you'll hear how meditation and mindfulness helped him through his time in the Army and about being present and surviving. Came back, ended up, got his BA and MA, and went into psychology and therapy, and ran for about 30 plus years a trauma clinic from a meditation and mindfulness-based practice. So pretty powerful. Although he wasn't done with that, he decided then, I better go over to Thailand and spend a year in a monastery with the Buddhists, trying to develop his practices, which he did. So he eventually came back, but that obviously deeply influenced him, and he's been practicing now in Santa Fe. And most recently, in October of 2023, we'll be hosting 100 veterans in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a 3-day meditation retreat. So look for some more information about that. We'll be posting that. And currently, though, he is the guiding teacher at the Life Transitions Meditation Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So anyway, lots in there. You're going to hear a lot of conversation about his experience, both in the Army and in the United States culture around race and racism, and even in the meditation circles as he was starting to lead workshops. So really fascinating, and his own personal work in dealing with what he experienced both on those fronts as well as his deployments in Vietnam. So I want to thank Ralph for spending the time with me. This episode is a little bit longer, but we really get into some depth about some of the issues he faced, and I know you're really going to enjoy it. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to... All right. Hi, Bruce Kittle here with Hidden Pearls Podcast. I'm sitting with Ralph Steele, and I don't have a short way to introduce Ralph. I'm going to read this briefly, but I guess first and foremost, I want to just say, Ralph, thanks so much for taking time to meet with us. Super curious about a lot, and this should be a 2-parter probably, or at least a 3, but anyway, that's another story. So thanks for meeting, and he's very graciously hosted me in his home. So thanks for having us. We're in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Ralph lives about 35 minutes. It's 16 miles or so from our place. So we're kind of on the southeast side, and Ralph is up on the northwest side. And it's very, very beautiful. A little crispy today in Santa Fe, but we are off and running. So here's my short take. I have you down as a licensed marriage and family therapist, Vietnam veteran, and a meditation teacher grounded in the Buddhist tradition who has a specialty in working with trauma. So we can fill that in as we get going. You've been teaching meditation and leading retreats since 1987, and you're the guiding teacher at the Life Transitions Meditation Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which I think is now located here on your property?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then any of that way off, or are we okay with those definitions a little bit?
Yeah, the center's mostly on the internet.
Yeah.
More than 90%, something like that.
Yeah, I know, and
99.
we'd shared too how kind of COVID hit you and your work and in-persons and all that kind of stuff, so we can maybe circle back. Well, so let's talk background. So what I found out, and I don't know if this is accurate,
so I was just digging around.
I understand.
I've got you born on Paules Island in South Carolina back in the day.
Yes.
Okay. And then eventually attended high school in Japan, I think.
Okay.
Is that, or am I
Yeah.
cool? Okay. Where I read about your first meditation experience kind of over there. So maybe just give us a little bit of glimpse. So born in South Carolina, and then how did you end up in Japan in high school?
My mom, she became a single parent at a young age because my dad was killed by the Ku Klux Klan. And so I was raised by my grandparents, her parents. And she met a guy in the Air Force, and that's how we ended up in Japan eventually.
Okay.
Because he was in the Air Force, and he got an assignment eventually to there. We didn't go immediately, but we eventually went.
Okay. So let me just, so what year was your father murdered?
I was 4, so that would be 1954.
Okay, so you're born in 1950, 1954, and was that in South Carolina?
Yes.
Okay. So one, appreciate you sharing that with us, and just, guess it's been a long time, but still sorry. And, I guess the one thing, because later we've got some conversation, I've got some pieces we're going to talk about, because in particular, you have your meditation practice at times, you have intentionally led retreats with and for people of color. And I know you've got another one coming up, and within that dynamic. And so I guess that kind of frames some of that piece up for us. And so we'll come back to that, because I'm very curious, particularly about your experience and your life experiences and how things around race and racism have impacted you, and or how that kind of unfolds in the world of meditation. Because, I think historically the world of meditation and mindfulness and all the teachers and all the blah, 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 in the United States at least, have been predominantly white. At least that's what I've seen. And so that seems to be a really growing kind of area, at least in our mutual friend, Rhonda McGee, Professor McGee. That's part of what her whole book's all about, and some of those issues. So anyway, so we'll kind of come back to those pieces. So mom's single after that event, and then meets Air Force person, and then in Japan following the military.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And how was Japan?
Sweet. Let's see, the yen, to give you an idea, $1 was 350 yen then.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
A lot of purchasing power.
So it was my teenage acting out days, and I had a good time.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
excellent.
Football, basketball, jock, and stuff like that. Japan was a wonderful place to be. Of course, you didn't want to be around Nagasaki or Hiroshima back then. People were still traumatized big time, and the reason why you want to be in those two cities as an American, people were very angry.
Right.
So even where I was when a jet would fly over, Mama son or Papa son in the rice field, they would drop what they're doing and run just because the plane was getting ready to land.
Right.
So
we're kind of in the 1965, 66 era?
Yeah, in the 60s, correct.
Yeah, mid to late 60s. Okay. Yeah, I would only imagine, 15 or so years after all that, dropping the bomb things don't go away.
Right.
And that legacy trauma is really powerful. And not just that, the physical ramifications. There had to be people still alive or struggling with some of the ramifications of the bomb.
Perhaps. I'm pretty sure not a little bit of people, but quite a huge population. One of the best things that happened for me besides sports was the 1964 Summer Olympics. And that was like when Malcolm X went to Mecca, it changed his life. Right. Well, this is what happened to me, the Summer Olympics. We have Kip Keino running the marathon, 20 some miles, and he comes into the stadium running bare feet, and the person comes in second was at least an hour behind him.
Right.
You know, it was amazing. Bob Hayes was running the 100 meters in 10 seconds in. That was pretty fast.
Pretty fast. Yeah.
But what was so wonderful there is people from all over the world, and there was no metal detectors or anything like that. It was really a family-oriented thing.
Right.
And I've never experienced so many different culture from around the planet, and everyone is so kind.
Yeah.
You know, I fell in love with this French lady, and I was with her and her parents. They couldn't speak English, I couldn't speak French, but we had a wonderful time. I'll never remember that. Yeah. Yeah, but it was really kind. It was kindness and compassion. And I'm really glad I got to experience, because as I got older, I found out that was the foundation of one of the foundation of the Olympics, and for community to come together and really have a good time. Oh yeah, Muhammad Ali was Cassius Clay then,
Right.
and that was amazing. Oh my God, that was really incredible to see a human being work his art.
Sure.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Man, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a Muhammad Ali poster up in my all growing up.
Yeah,
It was just like,
at the end to watch him fight, you don't know, okay, I'm going to watch his feet, and then you miss the punch. Then you say, okay, I'm going to watch his hands, then you miss his feet.
right.
So, yeah, it's just magical.
Yeah. Okay, so two things that I kind of hearing in that the coming together of all the different nationalities and cultures in that setting was a really special thing, kind of a new experience in that. And then it was also kind of the continuing emergence of black athletes that
Yes.
that were really taking not just a national stage, but like a global stage, and were winning and performing at a very high level and kind of drawing attention around those issues as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't talked about. It was just there. I mean,
Yeah.
the black athletes and everything. No one, the commentator didn't say anything or anything like
Right.
that. But it was just overwhelmingly
Yeah.
kindness. Just
There we go.
amazing. Kindness.
Be
It's
kind whenever you can, and you can
Yeah.
always be kind, I think is the slang. Okay, well then, all right, well, how long were you in Japan? And because I know eventually, so we have kind of two different parallel lives, and I don't know the dates for any of them. So I've got you going back to school at some point and getting a degree. You were in school kind of in the early 70s through 79 with your master's. So the next thing, though, it feels like, is that you at some point left Japan and it ended up in I was thinking Army, but I don't know if that's
Right.
correct. Okay, so somehow, the Vietnam War during this time is starting to escalate. And
Yeah.
so I don't know, drafted or enlisted or whatever, but at some point, so tell us the transition from high school into military life, and what was the time span there, and what did you do in between, and then, how did you get into the military?
Well, even in Japan, there was some of my friends who were 2 or 3 classes ahead of me. They went back to the States. They got drafted, went to Japan, got shot, and ended up in the hospital in Japan, and I got to see them.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm sitting in the bedroom, and we having this story. Didn't have a clue that I would eventually be in uniform. And so it was that kind of scene. And I had I came back to the States with my family, and I couldn't, in my martial arts, I couldn't get a black belt because you would have to register your hands back then like you register a gun. And so being in this body, that wouldn't be a good thing.
Right.
And so I had 6 months left, and we were in Kansas City, and I happened to be back here in the country the time Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. And being a kid at that time, I honestly really thought the world was coming to an end, because I'd never seen that kind of mass. We didn't go to school that morning. Everybody was downtown area, just mourning. People driving around with their headlights on, just in grief and mourning for respect for him. And we ended up at this park, just human beings.
Yep.
And then just standing, I'm just there with a couple of friends I knew. And it wasn't in my school, but I knew them. That's how I was there. And all of a sudden, we saw tear gas flying through the sky. And people crowd, of course, started going in different directions. And people was actually running for their lives, really running for their lives.
And where are you now? Where
in Kansas City.
Kansas City, right? Okay.
Yeah, and bodies was dropping, being shot. People was running across. I was attempting to run across the interstate, and I saw people getting run over by cars, and so I ended up back downtown, and it seemed as though it was planned, because there was news reporter and journalists from around the world. I knew a little bit of Japanese, I still did, and I remember this Japanese reporter came up to me and said, "Wow, what is going on?" And when he came up, then a police van came up, and he jumped. The police said, "All right, you niggas, get in this van." Nobody jumped in the van.
No way.
Everybody running for their lives, really.
Right.
And my home was about maybe 15, 20 minutes from downtown in a suburb. It took 4 days for me to get home. Called my mom. My mom called the police station, on and on. Went to the fire station with regards to the curfew. The doors flew up. The National Guards was there. One of my friends got stabbed. It was horrible because I lost a lot of friends. I ended up on this one street, and what was it, Rexall drugstore? Yeah. I heard something like a bulldozer coming down the street, and when I looked, it was at dusk, and it was a tank.
Wow.
A tank. And
So
it was horrible. A lot of bodies dropped. A lot of human senseless death. And of course, there was no iPhone back then.
Right.
One of my dear friends, a couple, they got killed trying to go to a movie. His skin was light. That's the only reason why we can figure that out. Because all the other people was white. They were going to the movie. They didn't, so
they didn't have any problem.
No, they didn't have any problems. Right. But it was a horrible thing, and so that's how I ended up in the military after high school, because I knew if I didn't go in the military, I probably ended up in trouble, because I was already so angry of experiencing the senseless death.
Yeah.
And so no, I couldn't have been drafted. That was against the rules. I'm from a military family, so that's a no.
Not waiting around for that.
No.
All right, so I think Dr. King was, am I right, is it 68?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So 68, so the whole thing, and it's really interesting because, I remember those. I was not very old though, I was only 8 or 9. I was born in 59. But like Kansas City going through and stuff like that, never heard a word about it. Like I don't have any, like for me there was this trauma, and then it was like, the nightly news back with Walter Cronkite and that kind of stuff. And so it was a very, I guess, literally whitewashed kind of, presentation. And there was some of that stuff about people being out, but not those kind of responses. And so it just an interesting, just how what you hear depends on who's telling the story. You know?
That's true. Yeah, the chief of police there in Kansas City, he became the head of FBI, or pretty high up. If he didn't, then
Yeah.
it was horrible. It was a horrible thing. This
Yeah.
is why I thought the world was coming to an end.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 68. So all that going down. You graduate high school. You're back in Kansas City. All that, and that nudges you along with family kind of history to enter. So you enlist, and why'd you pick the Army?
Maybe from childhood. A lot of my uncles and cousins was in the Army, but they were in the other branches too: Marines, Air Force, Navy.
Right.
So Special Forces. One of my cousins, he was a sergeant major in the Army, and so it's It's it was just you go at that time the stores, the Army, Air Force, Navy, they were like like a strip mall kind of a shop.
The recruiting offices.
Exactly. So you walk in there, and boom. So I just walked in there, and
Here we go.
yeah.
Okay, so you enlist, you're in, and then probably not too long, and they pick you up in a bus or something. And so, how many years were you actually in the military then? So 68 through.
Oh, they were giving us almost 3 years or something. I didn't stay in long.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 in. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you go some kind of boot camp thing.
Yeah, boot camp was like almost like Kansas City all over again, the riots. I mean, the boot camp is only 8 weeks, and I don't know, maybe 8,000 people were on this one post for basic training.
Right.
And just in our little company, either 2 or 3 people died. And of course they tell the parents, he was serving his country, which was the truth, but still, exhaustion, cold. I think one guy got shot accidentally. Yeah, but it was. That was one thing I didn't sign up for, but it was amazing. I mean, it was the guys who were from the city had a very hard time because it was in the country, in the woods, and things like that, playing around in the woods, and so that was no big thing. That was having fun for myself, but there was some guys had a
Really hard adjustment.
really, really hard time.
Okay. Well, so get through the 8 weeks. Lost a few members. So that, there's just this kind of continuing story of loss.
Yeah, well, yeah. I went through basic training and ended up in special training and signal, and after that. And
So what was your kind of role with the military then? Infantry or?
ended up in signal. That's communication.
Okay.
And from there, I got orders to Vietnam. And that's one thing I didn't volunteer for. And it was so much that I saw in the military that it was just, how do they get away with this, and how does this happen? Just back then, it's just so much that was, ruthless and stuff that was going on. But ended up in Vietnam and ended up in the special unit. I think it was the wrong place at the wrong time. That's what we would say. But I ended up in the special unit. It was only 2 of us that got picked to put in this, handpicked to put in this unit. It was an experimental military unit, half Americans and half Australians. There was only 100 of us. Helicopter unit. And so we just had special missions. And so my role in responding to your question was, at that time, was repairing the navigation equipment in the helicopters. Then one day we got 10 or 15 people got killed. And one is okay, but that many, it put a stress on the entire company.
Sure. So you're at a base or camp somewhere, and the helicopters are there, and everybody, and then they're making they're kind of helicopter runs into combat, and coming back, and then you're working on the helicopters to make sure they're operational as far as communications and whatever else.
Right.
Okay. And that was a pretty heavy day of loss then. That's a lot of guys.
Yeah, so I ended up being a door gunner because they asked for volunteers. And so
Okay.
that's what I did my last 6 or 7 months.
Okay. So if so just make sure I'm getting the picture right. So in the helicopter, the big doors are open, and then there's a large, what kind of caliber is that? That's pretty big.
No. And for one thing, we took the doors off.
Okay.
No doors.
No doors.
And I go in a room and I have choices of whatever kind of weapon I want.
Okay.
I mean, go with your imagination back then.
Right.
And I'm serious.
Okay.
And so.
So it wasn't fixed in the helicopter.
No, I didn't want it. No, you don't want it fixed back then in the helicopter because you are, you're stationary.
Right.
You can't be mobile the way you would want to be
Gotcha.
in the hot thing. And so that was too dangerous. It was a lot of things that I learned from the person who trained me, and like the vest we had, the bulletproof vest, we wouldn't wear it. We would sit on it instead of wearing it on our chest or back.
And why
Because I've seen people who got shot in the rear, and that's pretty painful.
okay. So you were still using it for protection.
That's right.
But because you were elevated, you didn't want to take a shot up through the base.
Yeah, I really would prefer to get shot in the chest than
Gotcha.
in the rear.
Okay. So you spent 6 months, basically, is it a daily mission kind of thing? So
Yeah.
So you're out for 4 to 6 hours?
You don't know.
Whatever it is, okay. And you're doing whatever is required of you, hanging out the door.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. We took care of not just Army, but Marines. Didn't matter.
So you guys are kind of supporting ground troops
Yes.
in the field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Our big deal is when we went into Laos and Cambodia. That was pretty. Going into Laos and Cambodia was so big. It was like when you leave Vietnam to come back here.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's how big that was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was big.
Why? What makes it such a thing?
Go with your imagination of seeing so many dead bodies.
Okay.
And yeah, just go with your imagination. And especially in Cambodia, when you see bodies that darker than you, and we have a firefight, you freeze. A lot of people froze, and stuff happened to them, and so.
Right.
Yeah, I remember going 4 days without sleep, and I said, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep 100 hours. It was time for me to lay down. And I laid down in something like 2 or 3 hours. That stood with me until I got into college, when I began to research this process.
Whole deal.
Yeah.
And were the folks that you're talking about, were they combatants for the other side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's who you're fighting.
Yes.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
And that.
Yeah, we weren't supposed to be in Cambodia officially, but so we got out of there eventually. So.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. So 6 months of that. That sounds pretty traumatic.
Well, yeah, that was dramatic, but you you don't know these kinds of things until you're in the bubble and you don't know those kinds of things. It's just like you and I here, until you get out the bubble and look back and you wondering, you thank grace that you're still above ground.
Right.
And the saving grace was our flag. When you look at the flag, you had peace. When you look at the flag, it gives you a reason of what you're doing, because war is war, like the present war that's happening now.
Yeah.
People trying to make sense of it, and that's like trying to drink 10 bottles of scotch all at once. It doesn't make any sense. You see, that's why they call it war.
Well, so, my memories of the Vietnam War, so, we're about 10 years apart. So my mom was anti-war resistor, women's rights, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was kind of a different perspective. And so she was just so opposed. She just saw all these young men, going off, and we'd get a death count every night on the news. And, she was just terrified of that whole thing and didn't believe in it. So, and then from the States at that age, for me, again, not very old, it was, there was, the protests against the war were really escalating. And there's a lot of questions about, what are we doing? Why are we in there? Why are we sacrificing? Why are we spending this money? So as a member of the, you're in it and doing that, were those, were you able to make sense of it? Did you mess with what's our mission and why we're here? Does that even come into it, or you just
No.
You're just in survival mode?
No, not survival mode.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, not survival mode. You're wearing a uniform, and you're wearing the uniform for a reason. And we're wearing a uniform because we are working for the country, and we have a commander-in-chief. And it doesn't matter who the commander-in-chief. Matter of fact, it was Nixon was my commander-in-chief then. And so you're going to work.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember seeing a newspaper. Yes, I remember seeing a newspaper, and we saw in the front of the paper, we saw people, they had the same weapons that we were carrying, which was an M16. And we said, wow, how did they get that? And we looked closer to the print, and it was on Kent State. And we just shook our head. All we know, wow, it's pretty crazy.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that's all we can say. It was pretty crazy, but we had to go back to work. I remember one day our commander said, okay, we want this news person to fly with you. He's visiting from, I don't know, some major newspaper here in this country. And he flew with us. We said, you sure you want to fly with us? And so he flew with us. And a lot of the time he was in tears. He wet his pants. When we got back, he looked at us and he said, I can't print this. And that's, we got our attention, he got our attention. And we said, how come? They just won't let me print this stuff. I know, I can tell you this right now.
You mean the reality of it?
Yeah.
The reality of war?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I'm hearing this, and you're doing this for 6 months, and every day you're going out, sleep deprivation, all those other kind of things, colleagues dying, you're around it all the time. So I guess my question is, in that moment, because you're not very old, and you're and your perspective is, this is my job, I signed up to do this, I'm following orders, I'm going to go do what I'm going to do. So kind of compartmentalizing it to some extent to get through it. But in the moment, do you have recollections of kind of feeling the cumulative effect of the chaos and the battles and the losses and all that? And If you did you have any kind of methodology for coping with it other than just getting dressed again and going back out?
Well, one thing, let me just tap on the compartmentalize first. It was back in basic training. I've never seen so many people go AWOL, take off,
Just
trying to get into Canada, want to get out because of the craziness that I just talked about a few seconds of it.
Right.
There was a lot of craziness, a lot of that I shouldn't even say. But it was during those time where my consciousness made a decision this is what I wanted to do. I mean, of course, I didn't volunteer for Vietnam. Actually, I was 30 days late for my assignment and to fly there. And when I was 30 days late, I was scared when I really reported in. And there was people coming in there 6 months, 1 year, a year and a half late. They had a whole company of us. So there was that kind of thing going on. But we showing up, it doesn't matter how late you were, but that's an indication of the person, including myself, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and then over there, like you were saying, it was my practice of being present, just being that I learned from my martial art teacher.
Okay.
In meditation, because you can only drink so much alcohol or do any kind of mind-altering substance. You only can do so much.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to settle down inside if you want to continue.
Because everything that you're trying to escape is still there.
Exactly.
So you can numb it for a while, you can escape for a little bit,
Exactly.
but when you sober up, come down off of whatever you took,
Right.
and you look back at it, it's still sitting there with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
what discipline of martial arts were you?
Kung Fu.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so it was the breath and being in the moment, accepting what is. Like, for example, it was one person that came in our company, and we took turns taking in a new person, meaning showing that person around,
Kind of
walking.
mentoring. And,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. And this person that I was mentoring, he had a family and kids, and he just kept talking about it. And when I was pointing things out, I said, "Well, you're here now, man." And
Right.
he said, I said, "Try your best to be here."
Right.
And he just kept going back, and he said, "Man, I don't want to do this." And he just like what you were talking about, alluding to, and he said, "I don't want to be here." And I said, "Well, you're here. I don't even know how you got here. It's totally okay with me. However you got here, I support you, man.
Right.
But just be here." And he just kept going on, and he was a school-trained door gunner. And then he got his mission, and his first time up, he got shot in the head. First time up, okay? And so one thing I learned there from the older guys, because I was 17, 18, 19 years old,
Right.
is to be here. I mean, Ram Dass wrote a very famous book, Be Here Now.
Right.
And so many other masters, meditation masters, talks about the moment, but to actually experience, to be in the moment, and when you're not there, I've never seen cause and effect or karma work right in your face.
Yeah, I totally.
You know,
That really resonates.
Yeah, it's in your face. Either you're going to be here or not.
Yeah, because if you're not present in that moment where you actually are,
Yeah.
that moment's going to just consume you.
Correct.
Like, because you're not paying attention, you're not getting your thoughts, your feelings, your body, all those kind of things. You're not perceiving kind of the situational awareness around you and all that kind of thing. So, like, I think there's I can't remember where it is. I'm not much for a whole lot of Bible quotes, but Jesus talks about, whenever you're at a city, stay there until you leave.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And so you meet different kinds of human beings who have experienced those kinds of moments long term.
Yeah.
I remember picking these guys up out the field.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Wow. Yeah. It's a whole different level.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to try to hold on to this as we get back into, the other parts of the journey, but really learning how, even if you're not wanting to be there, the reality is you are there, and having the sense of awareness and the ability to command your, skill sets and facilities to be present in that moment.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Big time, because you are a team.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a whole nother component. So it's not just yourself.
That's right.
Because there's 4 or 5 other guys.
That's right.
All relying on you to do your job, because you got to
Correct.
protect this corner or whatever
Correct.
it is.
Correct.
And if you're not there, your absence is going to leave a gap in their defense, and you're putting all the rest of them at risk.
That's right. Yeah. The people who, one thing, they were glad, the pilot and the co-pilot, they were really happy that I was flying with them, because I knew communication very well.
Yeah.
And then I realized how there was sometimes the pilot or the co-pilot would freeze. They would just freeze behind the stick.
Sure.
And we would take our, either if it's your 16 or the 60, the muzzle floss, the end of the weapon, and we would touch their neck, because we were talking nanoseconds here.
Right.
And to wake them up, and they get a little scar here, but
Because it's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wakes them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a very team effort, and when the team gel, then it's really a life force. And this is the reason why, not just Vietnam, you hear people do 1 deployment, 2 deployments, several deployments. It's not the area, it's to be with the team.
Right.
Because it's very special.
That sense, the energy and the sense of connectedness, the common mission and focus,
Right.
Just all this stuff with it.
Yeah, it goes so deep in the heart
Yeah.
that it goes beyond words.
Right. There's a sense of meaning and purpose to it that just surpasses anything you might find in just normal.
And when I say anything, I mean you being taken care of, that's better than how your mama would take care of you.
Yeah, right.
And so, yes.
Yeah, and so this is one of the things that we've heard in the stories over and over and over with veterans, whatever era,
Yes.
is that transition out. The 2 things, when I take off the uniform, all the, if I was a staff sergeant or whatever it was, now I'm whatever, nobody listens to me, nobody cares. It's like
Yeah.
this whole civilian thing is just, kind of out. But the real core loss is the sense of camaraderie and teamwork and cohesiveness. And and they struggle terribly to replicate that in some kind of way. And it's really not available in civilian life in the same way, because it's just so much different. And those kind of 2 things combined, particularly, are really, really hard for people in their transitions.
That's so true, Bruce. Especially if you want to go into that area now with regards to taking off the uniform.
Yeah, I mean, so you do this for 6 months. Is there any other part of the service part and being in Vietnam that we haven't touched on that you think is important and that you want to share?
Well, I had maybe close to a year left, and back in the military after returning from Vietnam.
Okay.
And this is where I had to pull the book that I put on the shelf. I had to pull that back off the shelf. How to survive in a very racist country.
Yeah.
And
So you face.
Yeah.
I don't want to minimize that either. So you come back as a black man.
Yeah.
After serving 18 months or whatever
Yeah.
it was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And you come back and you're back in the States, and at this time the Army is still extremely racist.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't put it on just one branch.
No, I mean, but
yeah.
military in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still right in the throes of all this kind of stuff, and now you're coming back in its early 70s or
70.
Yeah, 1970 or so.
Yeah. 69, 70.
Okay, and so you come back, and I'm just gonna. Okay, so as the story's unfolding, so from your father growing up in South Carolina, all those things and dealing with all those kind of things, and then what you experienced, and then Kansas City, and then your experience in the military, and then your deployment and combat experience. So you have all of that, and then you packaged all that in. And so I don't want to, whether it's trauma or PTSD, whatever it is, there's a lot of shit going on for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you come back and you're still in the military, and you're in an organization that at its core is still very racist, and you're still in a society in the United States who you've just risked your life for that's also very racist and not giving you, I mean, I don't want to,
Yeah.
all that means. So tell us a little bit more about that then.
Well, just on top of that, the society part, I mean, the racist is way old in America. It's like another name.
Yeah.
But the new thing for myself, while still in the uniform, was it was a large portion of the population. It felt like the major portion of the population was anti-war.
Right. So that's a whole nother layer of kind of resistance and coming back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it was really hostile. I mean, people were really angry toward the servicemen and women who had been there and were doing the fighting. They were blaming them for the whole situation.
Yeah.
And it was a really tough, there was no heroes welcome, there were no parades, there was no reception other than kind of fuck you. And you
guys ended up in garbage cans, garbage dumps, with their uniform on, dead. And so it's a whole nother level of survival. That's what happened. With the two together, the racism and then the anti-war. It's a whole nother level of survival for the last, my last term, my last 12 months or so, close to 12 months in the military. It was very rough. It was nothing good about it. It was just, I was going to say just like Vietnam, but it was just, it was back here and back in the world again.
Right. And so I just want to kind of tag into this, because when we were talking about actually while you were still in combat zone, your sense of mindfulness and being present, some of the lessons that you'd learned, from Japan.
Yeah.
Were you then kind of actively meditating, like as we might think about it, and then through this year in the military, did you regain or maintain that practice? I mean, were you doing that?
It was a very secret way, because
like 1970, you meditating like you're out of space, man.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there were, we had pictures of the Soledad brothers and Angela Davis, Malcolm X, posters. When I say pictures, big as this. And at these homes, we would have a house, and just as after work, we were all, when I say we, the blacks, would congregate in this building.
And where were you located for this?
This was in Georgia, Savannah.
Georgia, okay.
And what was so beautiful about it is this is where people could let off steam. And you know how we let off steam? Reciting poetry.
Oh, wow.
Poetry that we wrote ourselves. That's how we let off steam. We would just take turns, people were so packed. People was the steps. You couldn't just walk up the steps with so many human beings. So it was that kind of era there, and so how I would keep a calmness for myself is on. I would go to the base chapel, and on Sundays I would sit in the back, and I'll go there. I would time it before the minister or anything is going on. Usually nothing but officers that's up front, and I'm sitting in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting back there soaking up the juice.
Right.
Sitting in silence.
Yeah.
That's
so it's a way you could,
yeah,
instead of sitting cross-legged in the barracks,
yeah,
which was not going to be very well received.
No.
You could sit in church.
Exactly.
But kind of replicate the same kind of
Exactly.
process.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And I would try my best. Sometimes I would sneak in there during the weekdays and things like that.
There you go.
But other than that, I began to do a little bit of running, and then it got more serious when I got into college.
Okay.
Because I got into drugs. That was another thing that helped me to help my nervous system, because I saw so much cruelty go down where a family, for example, a guy who has a family and he gets out of control, he couldn't contain himself, and so he loses his rank. And then it gets so intense, he ends up sometime all the way in jail.
Yeah.
But just losing his rank, that's getting less money, more hardship on the family. I see a lot of family loss. The wife leave the husband because of this, and on and on. Just spiraled down because of the stress that was going down.
Right.
Yeah.
Just that cumulative trauma from all these different factors that we've been talking about.
Correct. Exactly.
Honestly, like I'm feeling the weight in my shoulders right now. Just listening to the story, you know what I mean? Because like between the racism and then the anti-war movement, and then just the collective trauma from being in combat, and all of those factors, and then the organization, same stuff. I mean, I don't know how somebody doesn't go off, and just, I mean, that would just push you to the point of the embedded anger that you would have to swallow daily.
Right.
Just seems overwhelming.
Yeah, well, you learn how to, I'm glad I was taught how to dance with the rough waves.
Yeah, right.
And so this is where my practice came in, and this is where actually mind-altering substance I turned the under-the-counter medication to over-the-counter medication, only meaning that I used it in a healthy way, even though it was damaging for my body. And then I decided I wanted to stop. And I mean, I was smoking 5 packs of cigarettes a day, man.
Right.
5 packs.
Okay,
man.
so smoking cigs, and then were you a drinker too, or no?
Didn't do too much with alcohol.
Okay.
I mean, alcohol didn't.
And then did you have a drug of choice that you're okay about sharing with us? Like
heroin.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then when it was about maybe 6 months or so before I was getting ready to get released.
Yep.
And I didn't want my mom, more importantly, I didn't want to have this kind of addiction, this habit.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't want my mom to see me with any heroin stuff, but more importantly, I didn't want my mom to see me smoking.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. It was a big fear. And so this is how I got into the practice and started running and doing things. And eventually I put it both down the same time, the smoking and the needle. And at that time, you can go to, I forgot the popular drugstores back then, but you can get a syringe for a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
Right across the counter, no question asked. And so I always, to not get hepatitis or anything like that, I always had a fresh syringe. Yeah, so that was no problem. So I cleaned myself up. So when I went home, it was like a book I put on the shelf because I never went back. I never pulled that book back off the shelf.
Wow, that seems tough to give up smoking. And
I didn't know it was tough until several years down the road where I was in college and I run across people in similar kind of condition with the drug, and I didn't know, or it didn't have to be the drug and just be the smoking cigarettes. And I had no idea it was so tough. I watched people and I said, wow.
Yeah, for a lot of folks, it's
Yeah, they do hypnosis, the smoking patch. Oh my God. Yeah, I had no idea it was so tough.
So, okay. Well, all right. So you're in this, you're getting your 5-6 months out. So you get cleaned up
Yeah.
and then you discharge. And then we know here soon you're starting school.
Yeah.
So what happened what was the plan? So you're leaving the military and you're dealing with all these things. You're not smoking, not doing drugs. What's the future look like? Like, what was the plan?
Oh, what was the plan? That was easy. First I had to find out where my parents was on the planet.
Okay.
The first thing, and found out they were up in Washington State. And so I went to visit them. And Mom said exactly what you just asked me. Yeah. And so, God, this is like a TSA interview, man.
Oh.
This is good.
Oh, okay.
No, this is good. I'm just letting you know because they've been watching me for a long time. Mom said, I said, well, let me try college out. And she said, okay. And so just like Mom take their kid to high school for the first day, she took me to college.
Yeah.
For the first day. I got out and started taking classes.
Well, okay, so let's see. I've got back to school. So
Yes.
So you got a BA degree in humanistic psychology and religious studies. So what year would you have entered school then about?
What year? Well, the first 2 years was at a community college.
Okay.
And so I would say down what you're just reading there, that was at UC Santa Cruz. And that was, what year would that be, Ralph? Maybe 76 or something like that.
Because your MA, you graduated in 79.
Okay, I graduated in 79. So back off to 77, back off another to be 75 then. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, humanistic psychology.
Yeah, tell us what that is.
Well, went to regular psychology, and I didn't like it because they were associating rats and animals, and I was done with killing.
Yeah.
Harming people. I shouldn't even say that word. And so I went back to the professor, and as soon as I walked in the office, yeah, Ralph, I know. Yeah. And so he changed my major to humanistic psychology.
Okay, I think I know what it is, but go ahead and tell us.
More human-oriented
Yeah.
and everything, Rogerian and Carl Rogers, and that kind of psychology. And so I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it so much that I got through. I doubled up on my classes. And because I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
And where other people, classmates, they were doing the smoking and the drugs and the courses and stuff.
They were doing college stuff.
And party, yeah. So I'd already been there, done that. Exactly. And so when I got through early, and so I chose another major, and that was religious studies.
All right. So tell us a little bit about that. What was the draw for that, and why did you pick that?
Because I knew from psychology how religion played such a major role in the field of psychology. It really plays a major role, and then especially when they brought psychology, European psychology, to the Western world here, it changed. It really changed, big, not a little bit, but a big bit.
Okay.
And the view and the philosophies and so forth. And so there was the curiosity for that. And then the other curiosity was back on the island where race was separated, colored here, white here. They had signs, different sets of drinking faucet, different bathrooms and so forth.
And when you say the island, are back in South Carolina?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
And so the curious thing, my family to this present day have ran this one church since the around the mid 1800s to now. And there was this poster when you walk into church of this white person on the cross, says, "Suffer little children unto me," and that was Jesus Christ. But I just saw him as a white person.
Right.
And that was just what is going on here. So I was curious. It just all this questions came up. So this is my reason of going into religious studies. And boy, did I have a good time.
Yeah.
Studies the Aztecs, the Incas, the Druids. Oh boy, the Druids was really, wonderful. Oh my God. The Judaism, Calvinism, and then when I began to get into study the Buddhist texts, the Buddhist texts helped me to understand King James, the Bible. And so because it was so crisp and clear, where I could for me, I could understand it, and so I just took off into that. I had a good time, and the department reflected you had a good time, and they gave me board honors. I was 1 or 2 in the department at that time that got that, and so I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my reason of going into religious studies. It changed me, and to see the bigger picture, that's what I mean when it changed me, because the religion is embedded in all the languages, right. And most countries, their religion is on the money, and in this country, the religion on the money is not Christianity; it's Rosicrucian, the Masons, and so the pyramid, and everything. So I got to put stuff in the bigger picture to understand how it works on the major playing field.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I've got a master's of divinity, and so it was primarily Judaism, Christianity, and then some of the others, so it wasn't as expansive. But, in my work I've done a lot of work with crime victims and offenders in prisons and that. And it just, even for people that don't profess a religiosity, that, it's like it's a big... In the same way, it's like, what invariably happened is that whatever they were presented with growing up was so, I guess, frail. Is a way to, for me, it was like this little paper tiger kind of thing, and so it was there, and they kind of thought that it helped them form a worldview where they could hold their life together.
Yeah.
But then when some kind of traumatic thing happened, or those things failed you, or whatever it was, but everything came crashing down.
Yeah.
A lot of the work I ended up doing was helping people reconstruct some kind of worldview that could integrate that, but yet that was never going to be the same again, because the God that they were taught didn't show up, failed them, and or judged them in a way that they would never be able to recover if they sustained that same kind of perspective. And so there was so much reorienting. Well, what do you think? Where's it? And just trying to find a way in the midst of their own healing to restructure things, and not to throw everything out, because they wanted to have some kind of structure around it, but they couldn't go through their own healing journey with what they had been given, because it couldn't hold up, or it didn't have the tools, or it was an obstacle. So I can't imagine. So when you're talking about just the idea of doing psychology and working with people in the way that I know that you eventually do, like the religion thing is just all over. It's like in the fabric, like of the language, of the culture, in a way, and a lot of times it's unspoken, but yet it's still kind of permeating all those things. And if you don't find a way to work with it, you never really are able to work through things.
Exactly. Yeah. All the way from childhood, my grandma, we were it's very, very rare a white person go into a black person's house on Pawleys Island back then. Right. And so it will be somebody like, maybe someone wants to sell some insurance or something like that, and we would send them in. We said, go in there and see Sister Mary. And see, we know, okay? The person go in there, be in there maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and he come out of there crying, just sweat and everything, and because he's changed.
Yeah.
Because you was in the presence of Sister Mary. And Sister Mary was a person, and other sisters and barbers from the church, how we was raised to respect nature, as you were saying, which, so we're talking about things that has no boundaries and rules, and you learn how to integrate that into your life.
Yeah.
And one of Sister Mary's most favorite phrase was to keep God in your heart,
Yeah.
and not to keep Jesus in your heart, to keep God in your heart. And he said, you said walk with Jesus, So in other words, constantly, you're the one that's responsible.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just want to just circle back quickly. So, because I've been in that too. I visited some predominantly, when I was pastoring church particularly, been in some predominantly black churches and always struggled with the image of a white Jesus hanging there because, well, one, given where Jesus came from,
Yeah.
I mean, like white-skinned and blue eyes is probably not the look that,
Yeah.
Jesus kind of had. And so just historical reality kind of flies in the face of that as well. But yet it was such a powerful image that came over, in my mind, kind of from the Roman Catholics. It was kind of, everything was transitioned, and then we wanted Jesus to look like us because Jesus is supposed to be our Savior. Yet it left out really just the historical reality and then a lot of the world's population at the same time, which seems like a really difficult thing to put up in my church if I'm thinking that's who's going to help me have a relationship with God.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
That's hard.
It's just a very big
Yeah.
deal, and especially Jesus is Jewish and everything. The whole process there and how that's done, and then understanding when you research it, you find out there's Mary Magdalene that funded that brother so he can go and practice, and so. And then finding out the Madonna, used to be the black Madonna. Then when it went up into Europe, from parts of Africa to Europe, it changed over to making it ivory statue.
Right.
And so, yeah, you get to see the bigger picture.
Right.
Get to see how politics dance.
Right. Okay. Well, let's keep dancing because okay. So you end up with an MA in marriage, family, and child therapy in '79, and now you're coming out. And so I guess, who is this? From the time you left the military into this, Ralph Steele that is now got a master's and is heading off. I mean, what were some of the core lessons, and how do you see yourself having changed and evolved during that time as you set forth? And I guess tell us about the vision then. So you get your MA in '79. What was that plan then? Where were you going, and who was this Ralph Steele that was going to do it?
Oh, number one, the first thing at Santa Clara there. I mean, I went to Santa Clara because I still, once you understand how it works and who really rules, then you'd make some decisions of where you want to go and study. And there's no organization on this planet that has more property than Catholicism.
Right.
Yeah. And the biggest art collection. Okay? They got their own money. So I went to Santa Clara with pride, had a conversation. My wife then, my first wife, bless her heart, she's on the other side now, but we're sitting there in the vice president office, and, I had some good academic background and everything, and we had a good conversation. And then he turned around and he said, here's the word he says. He said, what's the name of that department you want to get into? He turned around to the typewriter to type up the check. I didn't know this was what he was doing till I looked. And he said, I've always been a nigger lover. My wife and I looked, stunned.
Oh my God.
Stunned, man. So he typed up the check. They say, "Oh wow, this is this guy. This is just who he is.
That's
Just who he is." And he gave me the check to give to the administration. And he went in the closet, pulled out this bottle of wine. He got their own winery. I want you to check out this bottle of wine for me. Tell me what it tastes like.
Wow.
Hey, you at the top. You got to dance.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So after graduating, they had all kinds of cameras and news media there at the graduation thing, but I didn't attend because of no. And they said, "Ralph, we had all of this, I said, "Yes, I know."
And why'd you do that?
Because I didn't want to get in anybody's news, get in the spotlights, didn't want fame or anything like that.
Didn't want this uppity black man,
Correct.
with a master's degree.
Didn't want to be a poster or whatever.
Yeah.
But I realized that I didn't want to work for anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, Hewlett Packard, various companies came to interview us, to give us jobs, and more so than interview us. "Hey, you want this job?" And I said, "No, thank you."
No.
And so I wanted to just live out my life and get through life. That's
And then, Ralph, I just want to ask too, so now we're, I guess, 4 or 5 years after post-military. You haven't done any like direct kind of therapy or any other treatment around? Was any of the military experience and what you experienced in Vietnam, was any of that resurfacing for you or causing you any issues at this point in your life?
Oh, we didn't talk about that piece. Ralph got at least minimum 300 hours sitting in a therapeutic
Okay,
chair.
that's what I just wondered. So
Yeah, minimum.
okay, and you feel it,
Yes.
it just feels so unique for you because you left the military, entered education, and you already had kind of a mindfulness meditation background, so you had that familiarity, and now you're in psychology, so you know the power of whether talk therapy or whatever it was, and so as you were going through school, you were also participating as a patient or client within that kind of therapeutic setting.
Oh, that actually started when I was in the military back here in my last year.
How did you decide to participate? What was it? Just obvious that you wanted it or needed it, or because a lot of people don't do that.
Well, I either would do that, or I would either be 6 feet under or be incarcerated. Because, like I was saying,
you just knew.
I saw the harm that was being done to my colleagues in the military,
right?
And I knew exactly what went down and how it went down and how it was orchestrated and so forth, and so I had to maintain.
Yeah. So therapy helped.
Yeah,
process.
It began with me taking the MMPI.
Okay.
I'll say that, and I never finished it. I went berserk and threw pencil and paper up against the wall, and I walked out the office.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was my first day. I'll never forget that.
All right.
Yeah, first day of therapy, and that wasn't until maybe another 15, 20 years later, something like that, where I realized the MMPI, their sample population was all white.
Yeah.
So I understood why I threw the paper up against the wall.
Yeah, I could see that being kind of very offsetting or at least offensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, going through it that way. Okay, so long history of ongoing therapy throughout this process.
Yes.
And so helped you kind of process what happened and reintegrate it into, and not to make it easier, but at least you're not going crazy, you're not going to prison, and you're able to kind of maintain your educational pursuits.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and then becoming a professional in the field, you need to know both sides.
For sure.
And that's another reason. And also still working on my own sanity and everything.
Yeah. I think, and that's, you like to assume that about all therapists and psychologists.
That's a joke.
That they're doing their own work. Because,
right.
I don't know, if it is such a different thing
Yes.
to be on the professional side and you're working with somebody and it's kind of analytical. You're doing this, you have your
Yeah.
checkbox, all that shit.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you flip the chair around, like it's a whole different animal.
Exactly.
And like if you haven't sat in that spot
Yeah.
where you're looking and examining your feelings, where it comes from, your triggers, all that stuff, if you're not digging through all that with
Right.
somebody,
Right.
like it makes it so much, to me, more difficult to like relate to what that person's going through that you're trying to work with.
Right.
It just seems impossible.
Yeah. And then after the talk therapy or the family constellation, you go with your imagination of different kinds of stuff. Then meditation retreats,
Yeah.
getting into meditation.
Right.
That was the catalyst.
That really, yeah.
Yeah. I said, wow, Ralph.
Okay.
The first retreat, I said, Ralph, I was the only person like this in my body in a group of 100 people.
Right.
And there was all other kinds of shenanigans going on between the sitting periods, but I was practicing, and I said, wow, this stuff is better than heroin. This stuff is better than smokes.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is, Ralph, but this is going to be with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. And I was walking, and it's still here.
Right.
I'm proud to be an addict or a junkie or whatever, all those cruel languages associated with under-the-counter drugs. I'm associating it with the practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when I was a monastic, me and the other monastic, we was just, oh, yes. So
Okay.
nice.
Well, let's go there. So we got through we're going through school and you're taking off. So from 79, when did you take your year and what got you over there? And so what was the gap from graduation into like your travels and
I was in a
pursuing
doctorate program at Fielding Institute in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And for some reason, my head, I had a flourishing practice, and this was before 9/11.
Yep.
And the reason why I said before 9/11, I'll get back to that. My head thought I needed a PhD of being in this body so I can,
Right.
And so.
And let me just,
Yes.
because I don't want to, so here's what I'm hearing, at least and I don't want to misinterpret though, but in some sense, when you say being in this body, a person of color,
Yes.
right, black man in the United States, and somehow in your own head, you had a notion that in order to be truly validated and respected and or accepted as a professional in this area, you really needed a PhD in order to kind of open the doors that you thought somehow that you really needed to go through.
Very well said. Yeah, even here in Santa Fe, in this part of the planet here, people would say, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
You should be in some inner city or someplace.
Right.
So yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. Racism is going to be in your face, especially as long as you're in America.
Right.
But now I think it's globally, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then, okay, so what year, so how many years, from 79, then what year did you actually start the monastic adventure?
99,
Okay. So
98, 99, something like that.
so basically you've got close to 20 years of actual practice in the field.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I know you were doing kind of a trauma center and you were teaching and doing a whole
Yeah,
bunch of
during that time, I worked at a dying center, folks dying in my hands, and experiencing that process and so forth. But most importantly, I put together a DWI program for the city of Santa Fe. That was more educational for me. I mean, the program was excellent. It wasn't good, it was excellent because people had like 10, 15 DWIs, and the judge then said, Ralph, you got to help me out with this. And so he said, I know these people's parents and things. So yeah, I put together a meditation-based program. It was quite good.
Okay.
On the research and everything. But I had a lot of experience doing that 20-year process, and then I ended up, with my clinic and eventually had a couple psychiatrists, acupuncturists. My wife Now she's a body worker. She just calls herself a body worker. 'Cause
Okay.
she's so specialized in so many different kinds of.
So from massage to acupuncture to
No, yeah, she doesn't do acupuncture,
Okay.
but she's a
touch therapy.
rolfer.
Yeah, okay.
Went to Japan to learn Thai massage, all the various kinds of body dynamic
Yeah.
stuff she has tapped into, and.
Well, sign me up.
Yeah, and so yeah, good luck if you can even get her. But anyway, she even went, to get a yoga certification.
Yeah.
All of this is about,
Yep.
to understand the body. That's why she just calls herself a body worker now.
Yeah.
But at Fielding, I just thought I needed, like I said, a PhD. And after 2 years, I realized that I was hearing and receiving information that I got in college. I wasn't going anywhere. I was stuck.
Right.
And so some friends of mine took me up fishing up in Alaska. And it was one morning, make a long story short, we was, the light and day is different up there,
Yep.
the time-wise. And I was on the river, and it's supposed to be like maybe around 6 or 7 in the morning. And light was coming, and I kept looking back over my shoulder, and I kept looking back, and as I had more light and more light, I saw anywhere between 50 to 100 eagles just sitting there, about 50 yards from me, not flying all over the place, just sitting there. And it was such a revelation for me internally, that connection with nature in that way, where when I came back, after giving that school $20,000, I stopped, got out of it, and I put a program together of going. Simultaneously, I was on a teacher training program to teach meditation.
Right.
And
That's with Jack.
yeah, Jack Cornfield.
Yep.
And he knew I was bored in his class, and he knew it, and so I told, and everybody else in the class knew as well, and so I told them that I'm going to take a year off, and I'm going to take off, and they said fine. He said we totally understand.
All right.
And so this is, first I had Thailand, was Burma then, Sri Lanka, and India on the map for me to go and practice. And then I changed it to more depth and just kept 2 countries.
Yeah.
And that was Burma and Thailand, which is now Myanmar, that I went to. And so that's how I ended up being a monastic.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was the best time in my life. It was hard to take the uniform off, the robes. I actually stopped the ceremony. That's how hard it was.
Yeah, I remember you but tell the story. This is really good.
Yeah,
Because let me just,
Yeah.
so you're in through your year, you're in the monastery or monastic life, and then you've decided to leave, which you shared that for me, but I'll let you tell that story if you want. But you're actually in the ceremony because taking the robes off is kind of a ceremonial process.
Yes.
Okay, for that order. And you're in the midst of that almost happening, and then you stopped them because what I heard was you weren't quite sure you want to take the robes off. You were like,
Exactly.
wait a minute, and what the heck am I really doing here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And my partner, she was there, and so they told me to take a walk, and I did for about maybe 15, 30 minutes, and to make this decision, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. It was to put the robes on was difficult, and to take it off.
Yeah.
Because to put them on the same day I put my robes on was the same day Sister Mary died.
Oh, wow.
So she was in a coma, and I talked to her when I was the last person that had a conversation with her. And usually she would say, "Bless you," and I said, "Thank you, ma'am." And this time, I said, "Bless you," and she said, "Thank you." And it was a torch being passed.
Right.
And so I put the robes, was good wearing the robes, and then to take it off, my partner, she was already a breast cancer survivor, and then about maybe 6 months after I took the robes off, her cancer came back again.
Yeah.
So it made me understood why I took the robes off, so I can give the support
Right.
and so forth.
Universe was helping you out.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I learned so much being in robes, and so much that's not taught in this country. But like you said in the beginning of our conversation, meditation is mostly whites and everything, and that's okay. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is. And of course, you have that culture. You don't have a Hispanic culture that has its flavor,
Yep.
or a black culture that has its flavor. And the Chinese and the Japanese, their meditation practice has always been here.
Yeah.
They have Chinatown, Japantown, but you notice they don't mix. You know,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
there's that reason, and so as the gospel, like in Christianity, there's the gospel in Buddhism, and to taste that, the gospel come from one race, mostly, and the black race in this country, and there's the black race in Myanmar, Burma, and wow. It rocks. It rocks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, just like not just the teacher teaching, but the community rocking with the teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being embedded in that kind of way, and I don't know if that's quite the right word,
Yeah.
but like being able to really submerge yourself into the culture, you know, kind of the original culture as it
Yeah.
was, and to learn from that and to experience it and to be in that community it sounds like it was very transformative.
Very transformative. People love the practice. You know, I mean, it's not just adults, kids as well. I did a kids camp for 7 years here. And I mean, you go out and play, and kids come back and they sit for 1-2 hours, not moving, no issue.
Right.
Why? Because their consciousness, they don't have all this stuff on their head.
I'm still amazed in the United States that starting in kindergarten, there's not a 30-minute segment on breath and meditation and mindfulness. It just is, because of all the skills you might get, right? Learning 2 + 2 is 4. I mean, great, but I got a calculator and a phone and so many of the other things, but like learning the arts and the culture. But I'm so confused by that refusal on the part of our educators to educate kids in like a skill set that you can use your whole life. Think about learning how to be mindful at 6, 7, and 8, and like understanding thoughts and like separating from that real, you know, as an infant, I'm hungry, I just scream.
Yes.
You know, and then, but as I get older now, but I know some 30-year-olds who they have wants and they just scream about it. You know what I mean? But like learning, you know, how to differentiate in that and to exist in that and to like make choices about it and to be able to sit quietly and do those kind of things. Totally, like those are all skill sets I certainly wish I'd learned.
It's probably coming. It takes some time, but that's a good point because I can see those people as adults. They would be able to let the gun be behind the door. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I was raised. Yeah, the gun's behind the door. It doesn't matter what's going on. It's no big deal. And where that can't happen, you got kids taking guns to school. So yes, with that mindset, learning how to work with mindfulness in a skillful way, like you just said, and being in adult life, yes, a lot to be said there.
Okay, so that's another podcast we've got to do. So anyway, okay, all right. So you take the robes off and you come back, and then you finish up with Jack. I'm guessing, like,
Yeah, I took the robes off, came back, and there's a picture up there on the bookcase of him giving me a piece of
So
paper.
that I think was in 2000.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Somewhere around in there, and did these, all in the 90s, you mentioned the People of Color Retreat. Also, when I came back from Asia and taking the robes off, I got funded for close to $250,000 to, because it wasn't just blacks, but it was very conscious whites as well, to see how lump-sided, you can say, spiritual consciousness in this country is, and so they wanted me to see people of color retreats in the country, and that's how that began to happen. First, it was a big deal. I was happy, but I didn't know would be such a big struggle in getting it off the ground.
And so, I mean, share a little bit about the struggle. So was it with, I mean, getting new participants out of different cultures, or was it structurally just setting it up in kind of a white society?
Yes, structurally just setting it up in a white society at Spirit Rock at that time. There communication of black people don't meditate. All kinds of different languages. It was so intense that they had a facilitator from one of the foundation came to facilitate teachers and the community, and including the staff, and of course Jack, myself, and maybe one other teacher of the entire teaching body was there. The other teachers didn't even attend.
That's the worst.
One person in the community said, he stood up and he said, if a black person come and practice here, I don't think I could come back here and practice.
Who said that?
A person from a person from the community.
Oh, okay.
And a practitioner. And I commended him because he was all heart. He was finally somebody was telling the truth, speaking from their heart. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
You know. But anyway, we went on, and the administration granted us a first retreat, and I had to pay for the venue. They wouldn't. Spirit Rock didn't give us. I had to write the check for the venue. Had to put a sign up. It took my head back to when I was a kid. Had to put a sign up, black only.
Right.
Whites not allowed. They got so finicky where the cooks and everything had to be of color.
Right.
It was intense. That's what I mean. It was
Yeah.
crazy. It took my head back in time. But the retreat we had a waiting list.
Yeah.
You know, it
And
was
so I just
100
want-
people.
So this is Spirit Rock
Yes.
Meditation Center out in California.
Yeah.
And I think Jack was one of the founders, right? Or was he? Or
Yeah, Spirit Rock?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So kind of his baby. And so in the midst of tranquility and Zen and mindfulness and meditation and all that kind of stuff, you smack your head right against the same wall that you've experienced so much of your life.
There you go. There you go.
Bam!
Hey, one of my uncles would say, boy, remember, there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right. Like it may look, it's wearing different clothing. It's in a different building.
Right.
You know, everything. The language may be different.
Exactly.
But
it's
still going on.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
And so, the retreat was full, about 95 people, something like that, all the rooms or whatever. I know we had a waiting list close to 100, if not 100.
Yeah, okay.
And, of course, the facility has changed since then, but so then I said, okay, let's go to the East Coast, to Insight Meditation Society.
Right, which is the other big one out east.
Yes.
So you got Spirit Rock on the West Coast.
Yes.
And then Insight out on the East Coast. Is it Massachusetts?
Yeah. So this is in the Vipassana Insight tradition, okay? They had the big meditation centers. And so someone wrote them a letter from the community and said, if you have this kind of retreat out here because you're a nonprofit, it had to have been an attorney or a person got an attorney to write this letter. We will sue you.
Oh.
And so the first retreat didn't happen there. Of course, they said it's because it wasn't part of the schedule. Didn't want it to get in the community, of course. And we had the first retreat at the Garrison Institute. There's a place there. Garrison was a couple that just purchased or recently purchased this wonderful property across the river from West Point. To this day, to promote spirituality. And so this is where we had the first retreat, was there. Okay. And it was the same, not the same thing. Here you get a kick out of this. We had a waiting list as well. It was a full retreat, lots of people. But I thought I had covered all bases. And so a couple walk in, 2 men, and because the person said, "Can I bring my partner?" I said, "Of course." And so I saw the partner's white, and boy, I flipped out. You know, in my head, Ralph flipped out. Everybody else was cool.
Right.
The community was cool.
So it wasn't about 2 men together. It was that one of them was white.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. No, it wasn't about gender or anything like that.
Okay.
No. It was Ralph going crazy because what he experienced on the West Coast.
Right.
And so, but there, it's nice. No big deal. And so we had no signs or anything like that. And so those retreats, what else happened out of that was people of color sitting groups around the country began to happen.
Right.
And which was a good thing.
Like kind of a Sangha type?
Yes, correct. Community.
Yep.
Yeah, began to develop. And then down the road, years later, Spirit Rock wrote a check to seed a meditation center in the Oakland Bay Area. And then teachers, people of color, training for teachers. I had wrote a check back then specifically to train teachers of color. Yeah. They were too afraid to even say that, to hire up that money. Is like I felt so bad. I went back to the committee who funded me, Pond Foundation, and I apologized to them because it was like throwing money out the window. Mm-hmm. Because that didn't get utilized. That concept didn't use until almost a decade later. Right. And now it's great. We have people of color teachers out there. They're just out there. And I'm presently on the board for almost 2 years now, based out of Tallahassee University in Florida, the Chan Center, with trying to put together, not trying, but we're putting together a program for healthcare and further training for teachers of color. Right. Yeah, fellowship kind of a thing. And
kind of nurture and support them
exactly
along the journey. So
exactly,
because you get trained, it's like then the real journey begins.
Exactly, because the Vipassana world can be you can get out of the monastic scene, and it can be a very commercial business from the teacher's perspective, and the teachers can get lost. Especially now these days, since it's online, your community is not just 60, it can be 6,000, and so forth. And so during that time also, I said I will get back to this. This was beginning of 2000, going back a little bit. This was 9/11. And happened, and that's where my head did a spin on 9/11, and it was very difficult for me. When I say difficult, I mean all capital letters in red, and I remember going to the VA hospital, and I was ashamed to go to the VA hospital to check into the psych unit there, and there was like a waiting list. And so, we're talking at least anywhere between 50 to 100 vets in this one room. We were all waiting to see a psychiatrist, to see somebody.
So, and I, again,
yes.
I just don't want to, like, so 9/11, so the Twin Towers go down and the attacks. And then, I mean, looking back on it now, so what was so triggering about, was it just the visual images of the destruction and the people who died?
Everything.
It just took you back to...
Yeah, you could take you back, as well as attack on something on my soil.
So part of it was this, like you said, the flag was peaceful and comforting to you because that's what you still have always very, very strongly identified as an American.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that being disrespected and trampled, in addition to the violence on our shores and the people who died and all those pieces, and your military background, all of those kind of coalesced into kind of a very emotional, triggering event.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry for people who don't identify as American, because they're just delusional, because how can you be here but you have the right to be delusional. That's okay. But
people have to have the freedom to,
Exactly. So, but anyway.
Well, and just on it, I mean, you carry it though, despite everything you've experienced in your life.
Yeah.
You still carry it with such like respect, and you still revere what it means to be an American, and our flag and those kind of pieces. Where I think other people get disillusioned between government, the loss of democracy, for certain things that have been going on.
Yeah.
But I'm just hearing in your voice and your energy. I mean, you've always distinguished the failures of our country by people from maybe our country in a way, and that you've kept your allegiance and loyalty to that country.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything else, and it goes from childhood, from military family, and up there in that wall behind you, there had it blew up is one of my grandfather. He started the mail system between this country and Haiti. He was a representative, and this goes all the way back to the 1800s.
Right.
And John Hayes Rainey. So it's. I mean, we don't. Nobody in our family, we don't walk around like with a flag outside or anything like that, but we're very proud of what we have done and everything and all of that. But getting back to that 9/11, that was very disruptive, and I had a sexual affair with a woman. Thank God I had enough sense that I didn't do any mind-altering substance. I didn't, get drunk or anything. And but I ended up definitely doing some serious therapeutic work. I had 2 psychologists. I had a psychiatrist. I had an acupuncturist for 2 years.
Yeah.
I think for 2 years I spent at least a minimum of 2 hours a week for 2 years, and so it was hard. And during that time, I got diagnosed from the VA with PTSD, and then eventually got to 100%. Said, "Nah, you ain't fit to work, man, to get a check anymore." And so I just couldn't close my office because of the nature of my work.
Right.
I have all my clients commit suicide and they'll sue me and stuff. You can't do that.
Right.
So this is how I'm here. This is why I'm going into my 4th year here, and after 35 years, I had to close the office downtown at my clinic there.
And so the year of the diagnosis was when would the VA have come back with that? What year was that?
It would have to be the same year, 9/11, 2001?
Okay.
Or late 2001, 2002, I got the diagnosis or something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did that impact you in some way? I mean, because you're the same person going in, and then all of a sudden somebody spends time with you, and then eventually say, "Oh, you got PTSD." I mean, what did that mean to you at the time, and what was your self-perception of that? Did it change kind of how you thought about yourself?
Oh, it was. I was trying to do some self-management, and the only thing the VA provided was some funds. So because it was difficult, I turned my practice up during that time, during that closure period, because me being on the other side, working with my patients, keeping it together, my practice was turned up, up the hill. My personal practice, when I say my practice, getting up 3 o'clock in the morning and practicing.
You were spending a lot of time on yourself in your practices.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
big, major league, and so I didn't know what, and then I realized, I was never a person that chased money, and so that was an interesting thing. And I got, I'm glad I went through what I went through, because in my tradition, there's certain traditions where they groom you for money, and monastic. And in my tradition, money was you couldn't touch money. And so it was intense. It's just like this ring here is my wedding, and this ring here is for nature, So that's who I work for, and so there's and then still there are people have always been watching me, so I'm so used to that.
Yeah. Oh, you're a dangerous man.
Yeah, right. Well, it depends how you look at it. Yep. Teach you how to practice.
Bringing skills and peace and kindness. Yeah,
exactly. So that's how that happened there. That piece there that I wanted to share right there. And so those people of color retreats and the teachers and everything, it'll probably take another maybe few decades or so for the maturity of the teachers, because it takes time.
It's a process.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're not running around, but they're mostly seeking fame, hopefully most of them have settled in now and doing some really good teaching to the community, because there are people who really want to practice, people your age, my age, and there's the generation behind us. They're the one that's really hungry for the practice. And you notice I'm saying the word practice, not teachings.
Yeah.
And so for them to get the practice, they need to but it would help them to see someone who is further down the path with regards to practice.
There's no doubt, because the more you sit, it's like, for me personally, the more I feel like I need to sit.
Yeah.
It's like, it just keeps unfolding.
Exactly.
It's, there's a power to it.
Right.
Yes, honestly, I would say, my first 2 years, I look back on it, I feel like it was more of a spiritual bypassing of my issues. I was using meditation and kind of a, concentration thing, but I wasn't adept enough to be recognizing clearly and then processing and facing, the stuff that was coming up.
Yeah.
I was kind of using meditation and breath work as just another, I'd go work out.
Yeah.
I'd do my meditation, but, things would come up, but I was kind of circumventing that piece. And it really took me 2 years of just being in the practice. And I don't have as many years as you do, but before I kind of this is what this is really about. Like I'm trying to calm everything down so I can see what the heck's on the water.
Yeah.
And then when it's there, you're not getting anywhere. There's progress with any practice, but until you start, okay, all right, what is this? What do I really think about? What do I really feel? What am I, and all that kind of stuff. And and then each one, and then you work on it, and then you leave and you go to something else, and then, there's a little bit more left there. You know what I mean? It's like,
That's right.
And it's really a beautiful thing. It's honestly, I reflect it to kind of my journey with yoga. It's like when I started, not very, I was an athlete
Yes.
and all that kind of stuff, but
Yes.
flexibility. And so that really, really progressed, but it's like, no matter how far you get, there's always further to go.
Yeah.
Like my back bends still aren't very good. There's just areas of my
Gotcha,
body that,
gotcha.
but there are things that have really progressed. But I'm able to do things now I never thought I would be able to do 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it just keeps progressing. And so the deeper you go, the deeper there is to go. And it's a really, I think, beautiful and powerful kind of thing. So
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm glad we have everyone have senior elders and senior elders and senior elders.
And to
people
that
who
point,
walk the
having
path.
somebody to bounce stuff off of and say, man, I feel stuck here.
Yeah.
I'm not getting this. Or like, is there another way to approach this? Some different, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just so great to have people in your life that
Yeah.
have really spent time and are willing to share. So like you are today.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
So
You're
that's-
quite welcome. Yeah, listening to you, I hear when I was in Myanmar, I just thought I was from Bangladesh, or someone thought I was from India. And they said, where you from? Because, they spoke English because of the British colony. They don't like speaking English,
Right.
but they say, you from America? You from America? And you, I already had token robes.
Yeah.
And you, what? You from America? I heard him, he said, you're not Christian? You, what? They look at me, they say, come on in here. Come on in here.
Yeah.
We're going to have to teach you, man.
Yeah.
Why you let them people treat you like that? So I had a good time.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
Yeah. It sounds like a very affirming community
It is.
for growth and
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bhutan and Myanmar is the two most prolific countries on the planet with regards to Buddhist practice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you've got some stuff coming up next year, and I just want to make sure we have time for that. So let's circle back a little bit. So
This year.
Yeah, 23. Yeah, sorry. So in addition to working with people of color and into that world as far as it relates to meditation and mindfulness, you've also now kind of recircled, and I don't know how active you've always been working with veterans. I know it's been a piece of your career on and off over the years, but now you're working with another organization and you've got something put together for next fall.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that and
Yeah.
what is it and why are you doing it?
First, I got traumatized working with vets. I first worked with vets when I was in graduate school, and I was doing part of my practicum. I was at this community center, so I started a vet group, and I was I was the only vet professional there, and it wasn't easy to get it to my director. They said, "Okay, Ralph, yeah, you can have this group." So I vet, and this was back in the 70s.
Right.
So
Still, yeah.
we did everything except burn the building down.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
I can't imagine what that was like.
Oh, boy.
So you got a lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma,
Oh, God.
folks,
Oh, man.
and just
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
people just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So, and I was rookie in the psychological world,
Right.
So, but anyway, yes. It seemed as though I had to go to life to come up to do this project here. And this is a retreat that I began to research back in June.
Okay.
Started with looking for venues and everything, but first I wanted to make sure that that it's replicable for me to do a retreat of this nature, a veterans meditation retreat. So I applied to some foundations, and it was this one foundation, Lens. When I put in all the paperwork of not charging the vet not one penny, And I would even wish I could give them some money,
Yeah.
but to pay for them from wherever they live to the airport, to the venue and back. And so this one foundation, I was shocked because they only fund first grantors $250 up to $2,500, and they said they would like to fund me $15,000, and that will happen. The check was coming next month, and I was really excited. I found that out in September, but between June and September, I was researching East Coast. First, I started in the center of the country, the state of Kansas and Missouri. Just a couple of retreat centers that I knew of, and but when it came down to ADA approval, it was very marginal. It was very sad, and they really apologized in that area.
So let me just, so looking at various facilities, one of the concerns obviously is particularly for participants who have physical limitations and are living with disabilities and want to make sure that they feel comfortable in the setting while they're going through the retreat.
Yeah.
And so some of the facilities you were looking at on the ADA, American with Disabilities Act, weren't really up to par and kind of got eliminated because they couldn't host it with the type of the people that are coming, with the vets that are coming in a way that would have been kind of what you wanted. Okay.
They deeply apologized, and they said, Ralph, we'll give you a discount. All of them said, Ralph, we'll give you a great discount. Yeah. And I just come right back. I said, I don't want a discount.
Yeah, it's not about the money.
Yeah, I said, I want a sacrifice. Yeah. And so the beginning of September, the same after I got news from the Lens Foundation, I just began doing some verbal fundraising, something I've never done before in my life. And I talked to about less than 15 people, and I was able to get $7,000. And I was really shocked with regards for a down payment on a venue, a deposit. And I ended up looking right here in my own backyard, the Southwest, and the venues that I would, that's 15 years up to the present day, the architect and designer was much more conscious, meaning they have 10 plus ADA approval rooms and stuff. But their prices, they were resort level, and for a first retreat, the budget was already $160,000, and that would just kick it up more for the first time, and so I didn't want to take that kind of risk. And so 2 facilities in this area made a sacrifice because I put it on the date of purposely on the balloon fiesta.
Albuquerque.
And so it's going to be in Albuquerque and at the Clyde Hotel, October 13th to the 16th, Friday, October 13th to Monday morning.
And who's invited, and what are you going to do?
We haven't got to the selection. Who's invited? The veterans. And there's 4 classes, any vets, but it's not going to be open to any vet. We have to do it because there's only 100 people. Yeah. And we can get 100 vets from off of a block in some places, a city. Right. And so there's going to be a selection process, and we would like to get the first time from all over the country. So that's 50 states right there. Yep. So that's half the population. We bit the bullet this time. It's broken down into 4 sections. Vets who needs to be in a wheelchair, and this facility only had 4, and so we're going to get 4 somewhere in the country. Yeah. And Native Americans, because they didn't existed in the military. Nope. Walking vets like myself, and homeless vets. And instead of going to politics, because it would just take another maybe 2-3 years for something to pull it off, like the VA facility or something like that. The first time around, we're just doing it with our own resource. and everything, and hopefully we'll get enough funding. The funding will tell us with regard if this is going to be something that's going to be on an annual or biannual basis, and so forth.
See what
and
happens.
I have a vet committee. My committee is the majority of them are veteran women, and we've been wonderful in pulling that, because it's a big project with regards to moving parts and everything. The Clyde Hotel there are really excited of having us there. The room itself is, of all the hotels, it's the first room I've ever seen where one wall is all glass. You can look outside, and that's a big difference.
That's a big deal, yeah.
That's a big deal. Even though it's downtown in one of those tall buildings, but that's a big deal.
Still a skyline.
Exactly, exactly. We'll have a first aid room because we're going to have convergence of 100 vets.
Right.
And so we'll have at least two people, either two nurses or a medical department there, a room there. They've designated that, and I already have some people in mind to manage that and so forth.
All right. So, and when will kind of marketing, or how will vets learn about this? And how will they're going to have to kind of register and put an application in of some kind.
Exactly,
like. So,
exactly. Correct. You just said that. As far as the web page is maybe 4 days old, and how new we're just in the money phase now,
right,
of getting the deposit. But simultaneously, we're going to start this month here with regards to putting together the selection committee of the different categories and so forth of the people. Like, if it's word of mouth, in some states, I mean, homeless vets, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
And we may go to a VA center, we may not. It just depends. We haven't made that decision. We know there's going to be some people angry at us because you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But we will have a list. It will be happening multiple times. And so I can't tell you exactly how the selection process is going to happen yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, when you're ready to market and you want people to start putting in applications, you can certainly share that with us so we can run it through the Emerging Vets and Players Network.
I sure will.
Yeah, because I know there'd be
Because exactly.
Yes. I haven't told you and Rhonda this, and you're invited but never expected.
Yes.
But we just decided to do once a month, the third Monday of every month. We're just going to do that, our mindfulness class with the vets.
Sweet.
And it's really interesting because I do the weekly, what they call the huddle, where everybody gets together in that. And now that we're starting to have more and more people have gone through some of the meditation stuff and mindfulness work, it's like every week somebody will say, well, Bruce, blah, blah, we talked about this, you taught this. And so they were in a situation, they were getting triggered, and they did some breath work and just were able to kind of separate themselves a little bit from the moment. And overwhelmingly, one of the things that we hear back all the time is how powerful it is to feel like you have some control over not getting just sucked down the tube.
Right.
when those feelings and emotions start to hit you.
Yes.
And it's like, we know that you can't necessarily control that happening.
Right.
Over time, maybe you can postpone it further and all that. But the ability in those really stressful situations or whatever might have really triggered in the past, they still hit it, but now there's enough awareness and they've got some practices and then they can separate a little bit, and it doesn't run them off the rail.
Right.
And it's really cool. So anyway, we did one last month and you were on it, and we've been very grateful for your participation. So I didn't talk to you guys about it, but Em and I just thought we're just going to do it every third Monday, just to have one a month and really just do some kind of breathing exercise and then just talk.
Excellent.
And just to let people kind of really focus on meditation skills and mindfulness and that. So I'll send you another note to remind you, because we'd love to have you on and helping us. And I haven't said anything to Rhonda either, but we'll do that too. So, okay, so when this is ready, you'll send me some links and all that kind of stuff?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I sent you some stuff yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got that. And so the next meeting is the 12th, board meeting.
Okay.
And this is where we'll be going into more selection. We're still tweaking the website. There's already complaints from various people. You know how that stuff
I know how
goes.
it goes. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I hope to have the fundraising complete by February or by the end of February with regards to this. And then simultaneously, probably there are already people who have volunteered to be on certain selections
Yeah.
committee and so forth. So that's beginning to happen. And so, yes, I will have them get in touch with you with however they're going to decide
Yeah.
of how to do that. Because not all vets are homeless vets and everything.
Sure.
And so it's a big deal. But since I can't give vets in wheelchair, not just this time around, a really lot of credit, but definitely the Native Americans and everything. But hopefully we will round it off to 100 in there and everything, and we'll have a chair for the commander-in-chief, past or present. Don't know if they're come or not. The governor be sent the letter, and I just sent the letter yesterday to one of the state representatives and so forth. And so one thing that's common for veterans is quietness. That's very common.
Yeah.
And so they will learn some skills with regards to navigating themselves within that quietness, because that's what permeates out of nature, is quietness or the sound of silence.
Yeah. I like how you talk about navigating it.
Yeah.
Because even though you're in silence, there's still plenty going on.
Correct. Exactly.
So,
exactly.
knowing how to grab the rudder of your own boat is really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Ralph, then just let's close out because we've been going a while. I'm very grateful. So I guess the one thing I want, if a vet is listening to this story, what would be, and I don't want you to oversell because I know that's not your nature. You're not going to talk anybody into something. But if a vet is kind of struggling, whether it's PTSD or the stress or whatever those kind of symptoms in that, what encouragement might you give them to look a little closer to mindfulness and meditation and breath work and all that kind of stuff that you've spent so much of your life practicing and teaching and writing about? We haven't even talked about the book yet, so I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. No, that's good. We didn't talk about the book, so that there's more interest or whatever. It is a good read.
Yeah, no, I know it, and I told you before I took it with me to California, and then we're in the midst of the 49ers and all that. We're moving we're traveling every week, so I haven't got through it yet. So we'll come back and visit that when this gets up.
That's easy with regard to you're saying, with regards to speaking to another vet there. There's multiple things you can do, and these things. One is to take a walk. The other is to just drink some water. Okay? Because the body is so precious, and the reason why the water is we burn a lot, and you'll be so surprised how much we burn when there is I'm going to call it stress, but you take it to another level, anger, rage, but it's all internal. It's cooking. It's like a volcano going off inside. Not light. That's what's going on with all the cell, the molecular system and everything. So experiment with regards to that. You'd be surprised at what happens when you give the body some water, which is one of the greatest percentage of the elements that is composed of here. Another is, don't find nobody to talk to, anything like that. If you want to, you can go outside. If you got a dog, talk to your dog, or go and talk to your horse, or talk to your cat. I got a fish tank, and so I go and I hang. I just go and sit by my fish tank or something like that. You got a place where you know that there's some that make you feel good outside or standing outside, or it may be inside someplace, but you know that spot makes you feel good. And anybody ask you why you stand in that spot or what you've been doing there, you can't put in words, but you know you like that spot. That's the spot you want to go to. Okay, that's the spot. That's where you want to go. And sometimes those spots is just internal in here, just inwardly. You know those spots, and you found those spots through you and nature, accidentally. And you know how to get there, but you can't put it in words, but you can get there like that. Yeah. Take the breath in. Yeah. And just go there. That's all I would like to share with you for now. That's the practice. That's doing the practice, because everything I just shared with you is helping you to cultivate being in the moment and managing this remarkable body, speech, and mind.
Okay. Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Not really. It's kind of the same stuff, but it's good to be heard. And I think within at least the veteran communities that we're working in, there's a growing awareness of, I think the power of this for people to help them on their own kind of healing journey.
Yeah.
So I think it's, certainly a practice that can do that. Okay. Well, then let's close out. I've got all the links and connections for you. We'll post all that in the show notes. I guess it's just closing. So, we opened this really talking about your father being murdered by the Klan, and kind of an undercurrent theme throughout, not really undercurrent, was the role of race and racism in the United States, and some of the things that you've experienced, which I don't think are unique to you, you know what I mean? Like my perception of all that. So given where you're at right now in your life and all the things that you've seen and the work that you're still trying to do, what are you seeing out there that kind of gives you hope? That is this? Are we moving in the right direction? Or a healing direction? But are there some signs that you wake up in the morning and feel hopeful about our future?
Oh, that piece. There's so many ways to say that. To respond to that, but I guess I will begin by just knowing whatever we come up with, there's always a bigger picture that you can put it in. Always. It doesn't matter what it is, there's always a bigger picture. Even if you go to the picture where science have confirmed, okay, this is where this planet will end, self-destruct and so forth. There's always a bigger picture, in other words, in whatever conceptuality we come up with. But what gives me hope is when I look out the door and see a bird eating on the bird feeder or drinking out the water fountain, and they're only doing that because I put the water there, I gave them the food. So there's this relationship of compassion or support, if you don't want to call it compassion, supporting the person, and that's what gets in the way is people's belief system, and the more we can give support for each other, the better the planet will be. That's a fact. Everybody knows that. But we all know we have various kinds of belief system and attitudes and everything. But things constantly change. Wow, that person collapsing on the football field the other day, and that change permanently people, this country, people who don't even watch football heard about it, change. That changes them. And that person's nonprofit, people started giving, compassion, helping, supporting, and everything. And that's just medication there. Mm-hmm. And there's been lots of other kinds of medication that's been going on, even during COVID, after COVID, and everything, where the planet is constantly changing. Lots good stuff is going on. Science is constantly having various kinds of breakthrough with regards to understanding the body, speech, and mind. And so many, I can just go on and on with regards to that, but you can also look at the sad side. People, guns is out of control and everything. Women are being abused. People are taking charge, wanting to take charge of their bodies, even more so, and all kinds of laws. So there is the immense amount of suffering, organ donation, and kids being bred just so they can their organs and so forth. So the magnitude of suffering is off the chart, as well as the magnitude of goodness is also there as well. And the more you look at that, the more you see the goodness that's going on the planet, and you realize, wow, the goodness and the suffering is right there, and it's always been there. It's just that it's bigger. And the only reason why it's bigger, knocked on the door. Hello, we got 8 billion people of us on the planet, and each one of us is unique. That's amazing. That's amazing. Not even Siamese twins are identical. So we are such incredible human beings, and the more people begin to respect, to see how amazing our conscious, our mind, our body, what we live in, how amazing it is. The more we're going to support each other, but also the more we're going to dislike each other, because that's what we do as human beings as well. And so it's a personal decision with regards to when you get up and where you say, is there any hope for the world? There's always hope. Hope's always there, and it's always being groomed by people like you, like me, like your daughter, and my wife. So many good people out there, and it starts with one, but it goes up to actually in the billions, not the millions. And that's amazing. 8 billion of us on the planet, and close to 50% of us are good. It's hard to fathom things like that when you put it on that scale, you know. But yes, there are people running various in democracy when you go into politics and so forth, and that's globally. People bringing in their belief system and their attitude, and that's been going on since we've been on the planet. You know, it's just been going on since then, and it's just interesting. But out of that interest, we're supporting each other, and so I'm glad that every now and then a hawk may drop in because it sensed the vibration from so many birds goes through here, and in the fall we have about 50 to 100 raven hang on this property. I say, why don't you guys go over there across the street over there? Why are you here? You know, and so it's amazing when you tune into nature, or you allow nature to tune into you, because it's always been there.
It's always been there.
It's always been there. And so this is what I mean when I say where our belief system gets in the way. And so hopefully the human being, each one of us, come to that understanding before our last breath.
Yeah. Well, I will say, as it relates to meditation, I think it's helped me heal myself and be kinder to myself, and in turn be able to be kinder to other people. And, you know, so if nothing else, if I'm just more conscious of the suffering and all the good that's going on, and stay hopeful in that way, maybe it leads to levels of courageous action to stand up and to be kind when it's not easy to be kind.
Correct.
Those
exactly.
Kind of things, you know, those are the kind of things that maybe we're working towards. So, all right. Well, Ralph, thank you very, very much. This has been very enjoyable and entertaining. So
good to be with you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
It's amazing work you do.
All right. So let's see. So we'll.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah. So that's a wrap here with Ralph Steele, and hope you enjoyed it. And we'll do a little bit more of that later.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I sure enjoyed being there with Ralph doing that. He has such a great presence. He is a wonderful meditation partner and guide, and I'd encourage you to hop on with us. If you're in the MVP world, we'll be doing a once a month thing with Ralph with veterans. So if you're interested in that and qualify for that, you're certainly welcome to do so. And we'll continue to push some stuff out. As always, we appreciate your support very, very much. If you are able and willing to do so and inclined, we'd love to get a review from you. And of course, the old 5-star button and all that kind of stuff. So really appreciate that. And just a reminder, too, that if you're interested in learning more about mindfulness, you can check out the Hidden Pearls podcast website, where we've got some stuff up there, and Emma's got some posts. And also every Monday, push out the Mindful Monday, 10 to 15 minute guided meditation, along with some thoughts on mindfulness. So anyway, we really appreciate you joining us. And as always, you're not alone. It's okay not to be okay. And let's all stand up for each other, be there for each other. Let's have a great 2023 where grace, forgiveness, and kindness leads the way. And let us do that through our hearts. So thank you very much.